Ethan had turned 17 last month, but instead of celebrating, he hid in his room for hours. His laughter was gone. His confidence, gone. He barely ate dinner with us anymore, barely spoke to his father. And every time I asked what was wrong, he'd smile that sad little smile and say, "It's nothing, I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. Not even close. Sound. Faint phone notification sounds, laughter echoing. At school, the whispers had started. I overheard one of his classmates at the grocery store giggling, saying, "That's the kid with the 12-inch problem." The words froze me. 12-inch problem. I didn't know what that meant, but I saw the humiliation in Ethan's eyes the next morning when I dropped him off. He refused to explain. He just looked down, muttered, "Please don't ask, Mom." Visuals. Text messages popping up on screen, blurry, unreadable, just the word, 12-inch, bolded and followed by laughing emojis. At home, he stayed locked in his room. Sometimes I'd hear muffled crying through the door. His father thought he was being dramatic, said he should toughen up. But a mother's instinct, it knows pain when it hears it. So one afternoon, when he left for school, I quietly went in to clean his room, hoping to find answers. I didn't expect what I found. Visuals. Sunlight filtering through curtains, camera pans to mirror, shirt hanging off chair. A pair of shorts lay crumpled near the bed, and next to them, a medical report. The words were faded, but one line was clear. Post-operative recovery, femur reconstruction, 12-inch titanium implant. My heart sank. I sat down slowly, remembering how Ethan always wore jeans, even in the summer heat. How he'd limp slightly when tired. How he flinched if anyone touched his left leg. That was his 12-inch problem. Not something shameful, but something heroic. He'd survived a major surgery when he was just a child, and now, that scar was his silent burden. That night, I stood by his door again. Through the crack, I saw him staring at the mirror, tracing the long scar down his thigh. His voice was trembling when he whispered, "I just want to be normal again." Visual. Soft focus on mirror reflection, fading light, emotional piano swells. And in that moment, I realized. His battle wasn't with pain, it was with shame. And I was the only one who could help him fight it. Ethan's secret had leaked. Someone from his old hospital must have said something, because within days, everyone at school seemed to know about the metal leg. The jokes got crueler. Robo Boy, Iron Thigh, and still, that cursed nickname, the 12-inch wonder. Visual. Phone screen with cruel edited memes, blurred usernames, text flashes across screen, 12-inch robot tears of joy. He stopped going to lunch. Stopped talking to anyone. Even his teachers started whispering about emotional issues. His father thought it was teenage drama. But I could see it, the way he carried shame like a weight strapped to his chest. Every dinner became a war of silence. Daniel would ask a question, Ethan would mumble, and the tension would fill the air like smoke. One night, Daniel snapped, slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "You need to stop hiding behind excuses and act like a man." Sound. Table slam echo, followed by silence. Ethan didn't respond. He just stood up quietly, eyes glassy, and walked away. When I found him later, he was sitting in the dark, scrolling through his phone. The screen reflected cruel laughter. Someone had uploaded a video, a slowed-down clip of him limping in gym class, with the caption, 12 inches of shame. Visual. Shaky phone video overlaid with glitch effects, viewer never sees full faces. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he threw the phone against the wall, shattering it into pieces. That sound, it broke something inside me too. I rushed in, my voice trembling, "Ethan, please, talk to me." He looked up, tears running silently. "I hate it," he said. "I hate my leg. I hate my life." Then, his voice cracked. "You know what's funny? That 12 inches of metal saved my leg, but it also ruined my life. Maybe it would have been better if they just cut it off." Music drops, soft, slow piano enters. I knelt beside him, holding his hand, feeling the trembling of a boy who had been brave for far too long. He wasn't angry at them. He was angry at himself. That night, I realized, he didn't need someone to tell him to man up. He needed someone to remind him he wasn't broken. So I made a silent promise. If no one else would fight for him, I would. Because scars aren't weakness, they're proof of survival. And I was done watching him drown in shame for something that once saved his life. But mine was opening. Because I realized that silence was the reason he was breaking. So I decided to be loud, for him. Visual. Stepmother typing on laptop, morning light glowing through curtains. I gathered every message, every screenshot, every cruel meme I could find. The digital footprints of cruelty, evidence of pain no one had cared to stop. Then, I went to the school. The principal tried to sound sympathetic, but his words were hollow. "We'll look into it," he said. I looked him straight in the eye and replied, "No, you'll act on it." Sound. Echo of school hallway footsteps, faint murmurs of students whispering. I showed him everything, the messages, the videos, the mockery. And then, for the first time, I told him the truth. Ethan's so-called 12-inch problem wasn't a rumor. It was a 12-inch titanium rod holding his leg together, the very reason he could walk. The room went silent, not a sound, because shame only lives in shadows, and I had just dragged it into the light. Visual. Light shining through blinds, paper documents spread on table, principal's face unseen. That night, I wrote a post online. Not to expose, not to accuse, but to reveal. I wrote, "Greater than, my stepson is being mocked for surviving. When he was 10, doctors told him he might never walk again. But he fought, he endured. 12 inches of titanium doesn't make him less human, it makes him stronger." I didn't expect what happened next. Music builds slightly, hopeful piano under soft strings. Within hours, messages poured in. Parents, teachers, even strangers, people who had scars of their own, invisible or otherwise. They thanked Ethan for being brave enough to exist as he was. By morning, the school was flooded with support. The bullies were called in and faced disciplinary action. But the biggest change wasn't theirs, it was his. For the first time in months, Ethan smiled when he came downstairs. He held his head a little higher, not because the world had changed overnight, but because he had. He looked at me and said softly, "They actually called me brave, Mom." Quote. And in that one word, Mom, I felt every wall between us crumble. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, but he was here, and that meant more than victory ever could. Visual. Close-up of running shoes tightening, race number pinned, crowd blurred in background. I stood behind the barricades, watching him stretch his leg, the one they said would never carry him this far. The titanium rod beneath his skin gleamed faintly in the light. To others, it was metal. To me, it was courage forged in bone. The race began. The crowd cheered. Ethan started slow, each step careful, measured. Sound. Steady running footsteps, crowd murmur, faint upbeat score rising. Halfway through, the pain started. I could see it, the slight limp, the hand gripping his thigh. The other runners moved past him, but he didn't stop. He looked ahead, jaw clenched, eyes burning. And that's when the magic happened. The same classmates who once mocked him stood along the sidelines, watching in silence. Then one voice called out, "Come on, Ethan, you got this." Another joined, then another, until the cheers drowned out every cruel whisper that had ever haunted him. Music swells, triumphant orchestral rise. He didn't run for the medal. He ran for every scarred soul who ever thought they weren't enough. He ran for the boy who once sat in his room, hating his reflection. And he ran for the woman who refused to give up on him. By the time he crossed the finish line, he wasn't first. But the way the crowd erupted, you'd think he was the only one who mattered. Visual. Camera follows feet crossing finish line, crowd clapping in slow motion, sunlight flaring through. The principal took the mic, his voice breaking slightly. "Today, we witnessed something powerful. From now on, our school will honor students who show resilience, with the Ethan Award for Courage." Tears blurred my eyes. Ethan looked up at me, exhausted but smiling. He held the medal loosely in his hand and whispered, "I did it, Mom." And for the first time, I realized, he didn't just heal. He became the proof that healing was possible. Music softens, piano solo, gentle and uplifting. That night, he placed the marathon medal beside his old hospital bracelet. 2 pieces of metal, one that saved him, one that proved he had lived. I watched from the doorway as he smiled to himself.